Welcome to the AME television show. I'm your host, Jason Dowd. You know, it's been a long time since we got together, and I apologize. It was completely my fault. Last year, we had intentions of rebranding, and we also wanted to incorporate new things. So we wanted to incorporate sports. We wanted to incorporate new places and, you know, hands-on experiences, so much more. And by the time we had a chance to do that, everything just went wrong. And we had to get all new equipment. We had to kind of move around a little bit. So now that we're kind of settled in, we're catching up. And with that, I have a couple of great guests coming on today that we interviewed last year, but didn't get a chance to broadcast them yet because of editing issues. So today, obviously, we're not in our studio. This is my personal office, and this is kind of where I come to do all my own artwork, and I do prep for all my radio shows, do my promos, and so much more. So this is kind of where I live my life, and anything that you see from me that comes out, this is where it comes from. So in the next couple weeks, we have some amazing guests coming up. We have Rebecca Metz from Coop and Cami Ask the World on Disney Channel. We have Michael Campion, who plays Jackson Fuller on Fuller House, which is the relaunch of Full House. And we have Bob Bergen coming on. He is the voice of Porky Pig on, I believe it's the Cartoon Network. We also have some great guests coming on from a theatrical company in New Jersey, and they have a brand new theatrical performance of Beauty and the Beast, which happens to be one of my favorite Disney tales. So I'm really excited to talk to them. We're going to be able to see them in the next couple weeks. And hopefully by that time we will have our studio back. So lots of cool stuff coming up, and I'm really excited for it. You're going to see a lot more of this coming out through 2019 here. So, let me get to my first guest. Our first guest is Kathryn Leigh Scott. You have seen her on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. You've also seen her on the Goldbergs, and she wrote a brand new book called The Last Dance at Savoy, and this is about her husband and his last days as he was diagnosed with a terminal illness. It was about her caretaking, what it was like, how she prepared for it, and obviously if you're a caretaker, it's tough, but when you're emotionally vested in that particular person, it's even harder. You know, imagine your mother, your father, your sisters, your brothers, your sons, your daughters, or anybody that is suffering and passing away, and having to manage that. Well, she's going to tell you all about that, and this is a great book, especially if you're going through something like this. It's invaluable information. So let's go talk to Kathryn Leigh Scott right now, and we'll be back after this. We have on the line with us our special guest. Her name is Kathryn Leigh Scott. She's wrote a book called Now With You, Now Without, My Journey Through Life and Loss. And we're excited to be able to talk to her about her book and why she loves writing so much. So welcome to the show, Kathryn. How you doing?
I'm doing good, Jason.
I'm
nice
glad.
to talk to you.
You too. So tell everybody how you got into being a writer. What made it so special for you?
You know, I think I've always had twin careers. You know, I'm an actress, and I've also been a writer. I've done both my whole life. And even when I was doing Dark Shadows and all of the other television shows that I've done, I was still writing. So I've written fiction and nonfiction. I've written magazine articles, everything.
Wow. So what came first? Was it the acting or the writing?
You know, I got my first paid job was acting, and you always go where the money goes. So I did a lot of acting, but I always found time to write. So I've written mystery novels. I've written memoir. I've written a lot of things. But Now With You, Now Without You is the first book that I have written that really has to do with caregiving.
Mm-hmm. So, kind of tell us a little bit about the book. What's the book all about?
The book is really about the years that I spent taking care of my husband who had a rare neurological disease. It's called progressive supranuclear palsy, but it's one of a family of degenerative diseases. And we just tried to make the most of the time that we had together. And that's really what I wanted to write about because, you know, I think caregivers and certainly the people that you're caregiving can fall into a period of isolation simply. And that's what I wanted to talk about.
So how long has he had this particular disease? Was it something he just caught and it went fast, or was it something that he's had since birth?
We don't know. They're doing a lot of research into progressive supranuclear palsy, but it's very similar to Lewy body with dementia, which is what Robin Williams had, and it's similar to Lou Gehrig's disease. These are motor degenerative diseases, and he could have had it for a long time, but he became symptomatic. He started falling over backward, and there were other signs that he was having a problem. And he was diagnosed, and he passed away 4 years from the month of the diagnosis. So it went fairly quickly, and I'm very grateful for the time that we did have together. He was a lovely man, and I miss him.
I bet. That's so hard to be a caregiver for anybody, especially somebody that you love, and you're knowing what's going on, and there's not much you can do to stop it. So I guess you gotta shift your thoughts to how do we make the best of what we have.
That's right. And Jason, the thing is that almost all of us will have this experience. Will either be somebody who has a caregiver, or you'll be caregiving somebody, if it's a parent or a sibling, a friend, whatever. So, and there's so many diseases that, do linger. And in this case, there is no treatment or cure. So knowing that from the very beginning, what you try to do is to just make every day special. So there were a lot of things that I discovered along the way, and those are the things that I share in the book. My husband was an editor. He was the founding editor of Los Angeles Magazine, which was the first city magazine in the world. And like Lou Gehrig's disease, one loses the ability to speak, loses the ability to read. He couldn't turn pages of a book, and it's very hard for somebody who's been very vibrant. And there is a kind of role reversal that also happens. I know that people taking care of parents experience that. I don't know if you have, but the parents who have always taken care of you, suddenly you're caring for them. So, there is a role reversal as well.
Now, I'm sure in the book you probably expressed when you first found out he had this diagnosis, what goes through his head and how to basically comfort him through that type of a situation, because he knows what's going on, and it's probably not good. So What was one of the things that you tell people once they go through those diagnoses, whether it be cancer or what he has or something, knowing that it's going to possibly along the line take their life?
I think that my husband probably had a better idea of what was going to happen than I did, because his first wife was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis shortly after they married, and she never went into remission. And I met him several years after she had passed away. So he really did know what was in store. But the interesting thing is that when we got the diagnosis, I remember he said to me in a kind of wonder, he just said, "I'm dying." And I said, "We all are. We just don't know when." Mm-hmm. And that's the truth of it. I mean, there were people that came to visit Jeff and close friends of his who were in good health, but, they passed away before he did. You just never know. So that really is the lesson, I think, that for all of us, we have to learn and live by it, which is live each day as though it's the last.
Sure.
Yeah.
So what are some of the things that you cover in your book that can help other people that are going through these types of situations? Do you give support tips? Do you just kind of tell your own stories?
I do. A lot of it is anecdotal, but one of the things that I found most comforting was to actually go to a support group. And there are support groups for both the patients and for the caregivers. It was also learning to be mindful of having respite for myself. Being able to call upon a friend or a family member and just say, "Thank you so much for your offer. I'm going to take you up on it because I just need a couple of hours on my own." And that's another really important lesson. Sometimes it's hard to do, but it's so important. Another thing that I found really helpful in caring for Jeff we instituted a kind of happy hour. And happy hour, as you know, that's when, at the end of the day, you go to a bar and there are drinks and food for half price. Well, I instituted a kind of happy hour in our own home. And people knew that between 5 and 7 in the afternoon, if they wanted to stop by for a cup of coffee, a glass of wine, whatever, we were there, and Jeff was eager to meet them. And that really helped lift the isolation in it. And it made us both feel so much better, knowing that we had the anticipation of good friends coming by later in the day, and just the feeling that you were with people that cared about you, and you could talk about anything except the illness. And that was also important.
Oh, that is, because that gets your brain away from that. And you know he's thinking about it all the time. So to
That's
have
right.
that little time away from it's got to be very therapeutic.
That's right. So I'm really glad that I wrote this book. I mean, it's I get wonderful letters from people saying, I've been caring for my mother. You've helped me understand, why these things are happening, and just wonderful letters from people saying, just knowing that somebody else understands what I'm going through makes a big difference. So I'm really glad that I did it. The book is published by Grand Harbor, and it's available on Amazon.com. And if you go to my website, which is KathrynLeighScott.com, you can order the book on my website, and then I'll be able to sign it for you. So I hope that some of your listeners will be interested in doing that too.
Oh, I hope so too, because there's nothing like that autographed book. It makes it so much more special than just going to the store and grabbing one.
That's right. That's right. And I've written a lot of other books. I did a television series called Dark Shadows, and I've written about Dark Shadows. I've written about so many other kinds of subjects, but this is the one that was really dearest and closest to my heart. The one that I really feel makes an impact in other people's lives. So it was worth it.
One question I do have about the book is, and I know this is probably something that comes up, you want to be the caregiver, but eventually sometimes they could be too much to handle because you don't have the expertise to make them comfortable or whatever. Do you address that in your book where that comes up, and what type of decision you need to try to go through that's best for your family?
I do. And in fact, I make a very clear point that I have no medical background at all, that everything I talk about is just from my own personal experience as a caregiver. But there are times when you are caring for somebody, a loved one whose illness is so advanced that physically, for you to be able to care for them would really jeopardize your own health and well-being. And my husband was over 6 feet tall. I'm 5'7" and pretty agile, but I had to learn how to use a gait belt to protect myself. It helps when you're trying to maneuver somebody into a wheelchair or into a car. And then that's another reason to go to these support groups, because they teach you about handicap equipment and how to use it safely. But there's also comes a point when you know that the end is near. And that point came with Jeff. And one thing that I do talk about in the book is home hospice care. A lot of people don't realize that it's available, and they think that hospice care is really end of life. And I always say, no, it's quality of life care. My husband was in home hospice, cared for at home with a doctor coming, a nurse coming, and health aides who would help with bathing and feeding and so on. And my husband improved so much with that kind of care that we actually went off hospice for a while. So again, anecdotally, I do talk about home hospice care as being something that one shouldn't think about, that's the end, give up hope. You never give up hope. And there's always the chance that that kind of specialized care will actually improve quality of life and make your life longer.
So I'm really sad that you have to go through this, but I know that your experiences can help other people along the way too that have to endure this type of thing. What do you hope that people get from reading your book?
Oh, I think that one of the things that I learned, and I had to learn it as a caregiver, is patience. And I'm not a very patient person, but learning patience learning how to remind myself that he dropped that because he can't help it. And every day there's a new challenge, there's a new normal because it's a degenerative disease. So waking up in the morning and discovering one more thing that he's unable to do, that's one more thing that I have to help him with. So understanding that and constantly reminding yourself of that is actually a release. It actually helps you with patience. So if people learn that, if they pick that up from what I've written, I'd be very pleased.
Well, Kathryn, we're just about out of time, so tell everybody again how they can get this book, how they can get you to sign it, and everything else.
Oh, well, the book it's available on Amazon.com, and it is published by Grand Harbor. And just look at my name, Kathryn Leigh Scott, or Now With You, Now Without. You can also go on my website, KathrynLeighScott.com. That's KathrynLeighScott at www.com. And if you buy the book on my website, I'll be able to send it to you signed.
Kathryn, thank you so much for taking some time coming on, talking about your book and what you love. Hopefully that book will make a big difference in somebody's life.
Thank you so much, Jason. It was a pleasure to talk to you.
What do you want? You want Gladys Goodies? You want to try chicken? How about turkey? You want to try turkey? You never tried sweet potato before. How about we give you a sweet potato? It might help your stomach. You do? Well, there's only one place to get it, and that is GladysGoodies.com, where you can get the chicken, the turkey, the sweet potato, salmon, beef, and more. Should we show them the website one more time so they know where to get it? Well, I'm going to listen to puppies, so here's the website. If you want all natural, healthy treats with no chemicals, byproducts, or other harmful ingredients, GladysGoodies.com is the place for you. We got the treats and the swag to make their tails wag. Welcome back, everybody. Guess what? We have another guest coming on. His name is J.D. Horn. He's an exceptional guy. I had so much fun talking to him. He wrote a book called Witches of New Orleans. And if anybody knows me, everybody knows that I am into the paranormal. I am fascinated with New Orleans, especially the voodoo and the paranormal stuff that goes on over there. Well, he loves New Orleans just as much as I do. And he's going to be talking to us about his book. And he has a series of books, too. So it's not just this book that he has out there. You can see so much of what he loves to do with writing and the great stories that he portrays. So right now what we're going to do is we're going to go to him at his home. We're going to be talking to him about this book, Witches of New Orleans, learning a little bit about New Orleans and so much more. You guys are going to love this. Let's go to J.D. Horn right now. All right, everybody, we have on the video connection right now J.D. Horn. He's the author of The King of Bones and Ashes, which is actually a trilogy series. So welcome to the show, J.D. How are you doing today?
Great. Thank you. I'm doing great.
So tell me about how you got into being an author. What made it so special for you? When did it start?
It started when I was a kid. I mean, I remember making up stories before I could actually even write. I was one of those kids who would scribble on a piece of paper and hand it to someone and say, read my story. So it's always been in there. And in high school, I started my first novel. And by the time I got to college, for some reason, I don't know, I decided I would do comparative literature instead of the writing track. And I decided that I was a hopeless writer, that I didn't stand a chance after reading all the dead white guys, you know. And so, you know, I gave up for a while until like the early 90s when I started reading the Tales of the City series by Armistead Maupin. And I thought, here's someone, a writer who deals with pretty heavy issues, but he does it in a lighter, entertaining way. And so that served as an inspiration for me, and I started writing again.
Now, who were some of your biggest inspirations as authors growing up?
Oh, gosh, growing up, I would, H.G. Wells was my first set of books that I just read completely through. If you want to go younger than that, it was Encyclopedia Brown. But so I've always been kind of mystery, kind of suspense. Then as I got to be like 11 or so, I started reading, of course, Stephen King, as most horror writers, you know, have done, and Peter Straub. And those are kind of the ones up until I was older and started reading Anne Rice that kind of molded who I was, the type of stories I wanted to tell.
Sure. I love Stephen King myself, and I had a meeting with him one time. We were up in I was up in Bristol, Connecticut, where I was born and raised, and I went with my grandfather to a New England Little League Little League World Series, and sure enough, sitting right next to me was Stephen King.
Oh, wow.
I was like, wow, what an incredible thing, because I loved Stephen King's It and the Pet Sematary and all that other kind of stuff. So to meet him and sit right next to him in something so, I didn't expect to meet him in something like that. I expected to meet him in like some kind of crazy place, not a basement.
Lo and behold, he's a real person, huh?
He is a real person. I couldn't believe it. So tell us a little bit about The King of Bones and Ashes. This is a trilogy series. So what started the story, and how are you going to make it into a 3-part series to continue it up?
Well, what started the story was it was the city of New Orleans. I've been told my entire adult life, I've always wanted to go to New Orleans. I've been told by everyone I knew, people who knew me really well, that I would hate New Orleans and that I should never go to New Orleans. And a convention came up, and it was in New Orleans. So I went to New Orleans, and I was there, I think, 17 and a half seconds before I'm walking around going, oh my God, I love this place. I love this place. I've never seen a city that screams right me so loudly as New Orleans. And so given the type of story I tend to tell, which is kind of usually gothic, darker, a lot of family kind of drama, I kind of let the city mold the type of characters that I could see being there. And I love the city, so please don't take this the wrong way, but New Orleans is sort of in a continuous state of disrepair. Even when they fix something, they never quite fix it all the way. So, and so my family, the characters like this, they sort of have a similarity to the city that even when they're functioning well, they're not quite fixed all the way. So it brings some, multiple layers to them. Basically, part of what I really wanted to do, you can tell what a mean person I am. There's a character in the series who is a boogeyman, kind of a boogeyman character named Baba Jean, which means like Bogey John. And he is completely something I've created. I'm so hoping that he catches on, and within like 5 years, all the kids in New Orleans are screaming at his name. So,
or maybe he could become a villain in a superhero comic or something.
That would be great. That would be great.
So what were some of the things about New Orleans that inspired you the most? I mean, is it the architecture? Is it the lore? Is it the graveyard? There's so many cool things there.
It's the common. Okay, I can tell you. It's the Creole nature of the city. And by that, I mean the thing where so many seemingly disparate energies and sources come together to make the city as a whole. So yes, it was the architecture. Yes, it was the history. Yes, it was the cemeteries. Yes, it was the ghost stories I heard while I was there. It was the colorful characters that I read and heard about. So it's kind of the gestalt of New Orleans that brought it all together.
One of the things that I know about New Orleans, and when I was there, is that they do have that mystique of having so many different religions, and one of them is voodoo. Did you incorporate that in any of your books here in this trilogy?
I have, but not in the kind of traditional Hollywood, oh, this is dark, this is evil way. I've treated it as I understand it from talking to people who are part of the religion and reading about the religion, that I'm treating it as a religion, and I'm treating it as, as seriously as I do every other religion that works its way into my books. And one of the main families, actually the second main family, the good family that actually functions well, they are practitioners of voodoo. And one of the main locations and settings in the series is a shop called Veve. It's a voodoo supply shop that's run by one of the characters, Lisette. And I've incorporated it, but not in the way you might expect.
Interesting. I love New Orleans, and I love it for that fashion that there's so many different personalities and stuff that's there. But one of the things I love about it the most is that regardless of what could be happening. I mean, you saw Hurricane Katrina.
Mm-hmm.
They managed to make the best out of anything that happens, no matter what. They know how to celebrate. And I think that's something to be said about that city.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's talk about that city. I think it comes in from its very origin, where the crescent of Earth it's on is really, it's part of the newest land in the world, because it's alluvial land that's brought down by the river. And it should have never supported the city that's there. It should have, the men who plopped it there, they wanted it there for, strategic reasons, but it really wasn't the best place to put the city. It's kind of like, from the very beginning, the energy of the place knew it was going to have a hard, way of grappling and holding on. So it's might as well enjoy it while it's there. And I think that from the very origin of the city, it's built into its DNA.
The reason I brought that up is because it has such ghost lore and
Mm-hmm.
tragedies and stuff like that. Yet, on the other hand, no matter what happens, they celebrate.
Mm-hmm.
So is that part of the plot of this story?
Well, the celebratory nature, facing difficulties, sort of with a smile. I have a bit of that, but this is a dark book, so you don't get many warm fuzzies from it. There are a couple of characters who bring the happy feels, if you know what I mean. But no, you're inspiring me, because I'm writing the third book now, and there will be some happiness in that one because this is the third book of the trilogy. So you're inspiring me to use that.
And who are some of the main characters of the book, and what do they play in this particular story?
This story it's big. It's got a lot of characters. It's a big supporting cast. It's an ensemble. So the first book, there are three primary point of view characters. There is Lisette, the woman who's the voodoo practitioner, who's also a middle-aged mother who is putting her kids through college. And then there is one I'm truly proud of, Evangeline K.C., because I do believe I'm introducing the first socialist exotic dancer witch into fantasy. So she's a great character. I love her. She is liberated in every sense. She's not this stereotypical, she wouldn't be, she's a good girl and she doesn't really want to be stripping. She owns her body and she owns what she does, and she is using the place she runs to better the life of the women who work for her. So she's, trying to help them get educated. She's providing childcare, medical insurance, So of course she is broke. She's making no money from it, but she's taking care of everyone in her life. The first point of view character that we meet her when she's a child, and then the story moves forward. And that character is Alice Marin. And Alice is, she was hard to get hold of. I knew what I had intended for Alice, and I thought I knew who she was, and she would not cooperate. And just a couple of months before the first book was due, I'm like, oh my goodness, what am I going to do? Do I have to completely write this character out? And the night I thought that, I felt her come to me. Yes, I am that crazy. And she explained to me, she showed me what her issues were, what her secrets were, and why she couldn't be the character I was trying to force her into. And after that, boom, she was there. So she is a tough woman who's been put in she's been sort of starved, emotionally, and starved in so many different ways. And so the first book, you see her starting to come back from that. The second book, her life expands a bit more. The third book, she's really angry. So she's going to be a lot of fun.
That sounds like a lot of fun.
Yeah.
There's nothing like a scorned woman to make a book interesting.
Especially when it's not a romantic scorn, when it's a familiar scorn, when she's ready to, kick some, A and take some names at this point. So.
Well, this is definitely the type of book that I think I would love, because I love that dark stuff and I love the different stories. And I love that you're incorporating the history and passions of New Orleans, which is a great city to base this off of.
It is. I've really tried. With New Orleans, there's so many angles to it, so many facets, and so many stories that it tells about itself that, as a writer, when you approach New Orleans, you're going to get something wrong. So what you have to decide is, what am I going to get wrong? And so I feel good that the few bits that I've pulled together and sort of made my New Orleans. I've been contacted by more than a few people who have either lived there, grew up there, or live there currently, have said, you've got the essence of New Orleans. You've done really well for someone who doesn't live here. So I'm very proud of that fact. And I think it's because the spirit of that city, and I do feel there's kind of a genus Loki in the place. It spoke to me and I listened.
Yeah. So I know the first book's out. Is the
Mhm.
second book out yet? And if not, when's it coming out? And I know that you're working on the third. So when do you estimate that one to be out?
The first book came out, I'll even do a little audio visual presentation, came out January, end of January. The second book, I have the ARCs now, the advanced reader copies, and it comes out June 26th. The third book, I don't know what date my publisher set for that yet. I think it's November or December, but I can't swear to that.
Wow. So almost every part of the quarter this year, you're going to have at least one book out, which is awesome. That's a lot of
it's
work.
been kind of like trying to get.
Well, congratulations on the
Thank you.
series, and I definitely want to read this book. I love these types of novels, and I've always been inspired by New Orleans, so I would love to be able to check this out. Tell everybody how they can get the books.
The easiest place, of course, is Amazon.com. You can also order the books through your local bookstore if you want to support your local bookstore. My favorite thing, and I know this sounds stupid as a writer who lives on his, what he's writing, I love it when people go to libraries and ask that they carry it, because that way I know it's out there and it's available for free, not pirated, which really makes me mad, but for free for people who want to read it. So go to your library and ask them to bring the book series in.
Wow, love it. Well, JD, thank you for coming on here and being a great guest. I love your book concept. I hope everybody reads it, and I know I'm going to get a copy of it myself.
Great, thank you.
Jason Dowd of Imagination Art Studios is proud to announce the release of his steampunk collection, which is currently on tour across the country. There you will see beautiful handmade masks from Venice, Italy that accentuate beautiful women to create amazing stories and feelings to those who visit the collection. Each photo series has a theme, mask, authentic props, and beautifully elaborate outfits, all collaborated in the mind of Jason Dowd to create the right emotion and feeling. The masks come from a shop at Epcot at the Italian Pavilion, where all these photos are on display for you to see. This is one of the biggest accomplishments of his career, having his work at Disney. Come see the beautiful first release of the series, which includes Distressed Dancer, Spanish Serenade, The Pied Piper, and Reaching for the Czars. You can see them in person or online at www.imaginationartstudios.com. For more information, visit the website. Again, it's imaginationartstudios.com. Our Facebook is Imagination Art Studios. Twitter is @Dowd Studios, and Instagram is @JasonDowd. Come and be mesmerized by the masks and the stories behind them. Hey everybody, well, we are back. I hope you enjoyed our show today. We have so much more coming up. We have a lot of great interviews coming out I think you guys are going to love. And also check us out on the AME radio show and the AME magazine. You can find it all at www.theamemagazine.com. You can check it out anytime that you like. It's up there for you to be inspired. And if you missed anything, everything's archived. We have so much stuff up there. I know you can go up there and be inspired. No matter if you're watching the television, the magazine, or the radio show. Go be inspired. Challenge yourself to be your best, and challenge yourself to do something you're not used to doing. You might surprise yourself. And that's all we stand for here at the AME Experience, is helping you reach those goals and seeing that you can do it. Everybody that has ever been on our show has done it. They've walked the walk, they've talked the talk. They can help you, inspire you to do the same thing. So until next time, guys, this is the AME television show. We will be back with more guests. We will have, hopefully, our studio back, and maybe even some really cool places and things for you to see. So until next time, keep those creative juices flowing. Good night, everybody.
Like, OMG, you were on TV and junk.